Hello, welcome to another episode of the Lifestyle MD. I am your host, Dr. Angela, and today's episode I am going to focus on the topic milk. Specifically, I'm going to break down the differences, the risks, the benefits of consuming either cow milk or plant-based milk. All of this in honor of World Plant Milk Day. So just a little bit of backstory. Apparently, World Plant Milk Day was founded in 2017 by Robbie Lockie, I believe, the co-creator of something called the Plant-Based News. And the day was created to educate the public about the health and environmental benefits of plant-based milk and encourage those on the fence to consider switching away from dairy. Now, that brings me to the reason I decided to do this topic today. Do we really need milk or any milk alternatives? In short, no. But the full answer is actually a little bit more complicated than that. The reality is that human beings are capable of getting all of their required nutrients from a high-quality dairy-free diet. In other words, you don't need to consume dairy in order to meet all of your nutritional needs. In childhood, in infancy, all the way up to possibly even the age of 5, it is probably necessary. In fact, moms breastfeed, make milk naturally to feed their young because it is their primary source of nutrition. But as we age, you should be getting more nutrients from a variety of other food sources. Solids were introduced undoubtedly, or at least hopefully, by the time you were 6 months old, with the hope and intention that we would all increase the variety and variability of our diet as tolerated. Now, granted, some people can't have certain food groups and that's fine, but let's just kind of speak general public here. The goal is for you to get more of your nutrients from several places. So for several decades, the milk industry did a very good job with the help of the government, or at least with the support of the government, convincing the public that milk was necessary for a well-balanced, healthy diet. So much so that the food pyramid featured dairy as a very prominently as an important component of a healthy, well-balanced diet. Now, in reality, dairy is not necessary in the diet for optimal health. But for many people, it is the easiest way to get some of the vital nutrients that we need, such as calcium, vitamin D, and protein, which help keep your heart and your muscles and your bones healthy and functioning properly. The average adult needs somewhere between 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day. That is equivalent to about 2 to 3 glasses of milk per day. That's not going to be the same for a teenager, pregnant woman, or a lactating woman. You will need higher amounts of calcium during these periods. So if milk is not the only source of calcium, if milk is not the only way for you to have a healthy, well-balanced diet, what are your other options for getting adequate calcium? Like, most people focus on calcium, making sure that, if I don't drink milk, I'm not going to get enough calcium. Well, I'm just going to name a few foods that, if eaten on occasion or daily or most days of the week, will help you get there. Kale, 1 cup cooked, 177 milligrams. Bok choy, 1 cup cooked, 58 milligrams. Tofu, half a cup. It's fortified with calcium, anywhere 250 to 800 milligrams, just a half a cup. Almond milk, if that's your preference, you can get 482 milligrams a cup. White beans, 200 milligrams a cup. Rhubarb, 348 milligrams in 1 fig. 4 figs, OJ, 50 black beans, 84. Butternut squash, 84 milligrams. Okra, 8 pieces of okra, 65 milligrams. The list goes on. Well, now that I've told you all of the other places that you can get calcium, just focusing on calcium, well, there's no wonder why Americans have chosen, by and large, to get the majority of their calcium from milk, or at least have turned to milk. For one, it's easier. Milk is just so much easier. You can just drink it, and then, assuming that you can actually have it. And also, it's just been emphasized. Most people don't think about these other foods, or any other food for that matter, as being a good source of calcium. Now, as if I haven't already done enough picking on milk, I'm going to point out the negatives of milk first. So first, I want to throw a little kink in everyone's expectations about milk and osteoporosis and fractures. Some interesting data has recently come out showing that societies or cultures with high consumption of milk, or countries that have the highest consumption of milk, actually have the highest rates of hip fracture. Now, this is not necessarily causal. It doesn't mean that milk itself caused the fractures, but contrasting this to populations that have low dairy consumption, who do not suffer from these high rates of fractures, it at least puts it in perspective and kind of gives you, it dispels the belief or dispels the false belief that you have to consume high quantities of milk in order to have healthy bones. Now, there are some other studies that have tried to understand the association between milk consumption and hip fractures. It's not fully elucidated. It's not even sure if it's, not sure that it's a causal relationship, but milk does contain animal protein. Animal protein acidifies the blood, is increased acidity of the blood, causes you then to leach calcium from your bones in order to bring down the acidity of the blood. So I'm not sure if that's really truly how it happens, but that's the presumed, or the hypothesis, the presumed pathophysiology behind why one might have increased risk of things like hip fractures when you have high consumption of milk. Okay, another problem with milk. There is a significant portion of the population that is intolerant to milk. Yes, lactose intolerance. In fact, the overwhelming majority of the world suffers from lactose intolerance. So milk is not necessarily, seemingly, evolutionarily intended to be a major component of our diet. So up to 65% of the world's population is not able to digest lactose. And this is later in life. Again, assumed largely because their ancestors did not evolve to have the genes that would allow them to digest that substance in their adult years. So in America, it's about 35% Americans. Now, if you take a deeper dive and look at the statistics around different racial and ethnic groups, 95% of Asians, 60 to 80% of African Americans and Ashkenazi Jews, and 80 to 100%, I don't even know how, that's a broad range, but 80 to 100% of Native Americans or American Indians, and 50 to 80% of Hispanics, again, broad range because it's a diaspora, are lactose intolerant. So some of y'all can't even drink it. So let's just put that out there, or at least not without a little bit of discomfort, gas, bloating, indigestion. We're all familiar with what that does to some folks. Okay, 2 more points against milk, or specifically cow's milk or consumption of animal-based milk. There is an association between consumption of milk and increased rates of prostate cancer and endometrial cancer. Some studies have indicated that the association is specifically with whole milk, and that is thought to be related to the growth hormones that are present. So now, a great deal of the growth hormones that milk contains occur naturally because it is being produced by a lactating female cow. The growth hormone is necessary. Some of those growth hormones are being injected into the cattle in order to increase their milk production. So these are thought to be linked to the prevalence or the higher prevalence of prostate cancer and endometrial cancer. Interesting, on the converse, you actually see lower rates of colon cancer. So while it may be bad for some cancers, it is not bad for all. My final naysayer point against milk is the association between milk and saturated fat. So saturated fat is not great for cardiovascular disease. So heart attacks, strokes, want to avoid that. Saturated fat, high consumption of it is linked to increased prevalence of this. And dairy contains saturated fat, whole fat dairy especially. So you can drink skim milk and low fat milk, and that would help you in that regard. But I would contend that the problem with the saturated fat associated with milk or dairy is not specifically the milk that people are drinking. It is the dairy products that they are consuming, such as cheese, ice cream, and the like, the things that tend to be higher in fat. So this may not be a problem of milk directly, but a product of the things that we make from milk. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. Milk is not necessarily all bad. There is evidence to show that people who drink milk can improve their control or management of diabetes, maybe even prevent diabetes in some cases. Milk is also rich in a whole variety of other nutrients that we often don't talk about: folate, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, vitamin A, vitamin B12, zinc, protein, selenium. It also has iron, B6, vitamin E, niacin, thiamine, riboflavin. So it contains a lot of nutrients. I'll give you that. To be fair, it has a whole lot of essential nutrients that we need. It's also great for appetite control. So a milk can be a part of a diet geared toward helping patients to curb their weight. On the flip side, there are products made with milk that are not so great for weight management. But anyway, I digress. Talked a little bit about bone health. Data there is mixed. Dental health, again, there's other ways to get calcium. So it's really not the sweetheart that it's been made out to be. Certainly, young children benefit from all of the nutrients because, especially babies, they don't have any other source of these nutrients. They are consuming milk. So they're getting it hopefully from their mother, if not their mother, and formula variety. But as we get older, it is not the only source of all of these nutrients. Now, what about our friendly counterparts over there, plant-based milks? Does that mean instead that we should be consuming plant-based milks? Now, anyone from my generation is very familiar with the Got Milk campaign, which was formally introduced in the early 90s and went on until 2014 when it was finally retired. That campaign rose out of the necessity or the need for milk to gain a stronger footing in the market because it was getting pushed out due to the rising public interest in soft drinks and or not necessarily energy drinks. Those weren't quite popular yet, but electrolyte beverages. Basically, all these other beverages were out there for people to drink that they were kind of like not as interested in milk. So milk was suffering. So enter the Got Milk campaign. There's a whole history and story behind that. Well, so that drove a lot of the consumerism and emphasis on milk in the public. Well, now there's a revival of the Got Milk campaign, except it's not actually milk. It's Nextmilk, which contains oat concentrate, coconut cream, and oil, soy protein isolate, cane sugar, and several other ingredients, including sunflower and some emulsifiers. So it's promoting itself as an alternative that's better than milk and it says it contains 6 key nutrients that are found in dairy and compared to the 13 essential nutrients that are found in dairy. So this brings me to my contention with dairy alternatives or milk substitutes. Instead of positioning themselves as a unique product, they are aligning themselves as a substitute, a replacement for milk. And the unfortunate part is that these products, and especially this one in particular, is very processed. It's got all these extra additives in it in order to make it into this milk alternative. So, it goes back to my original point. If you don't need milk to have a healthy, well-balanced diet, why do you need a milk substitute? They're trying to just make it into something that already exists in order to compete with the market share. It comes back to marketing and trying to sell a product. If the real goal was being healthy, we'd be focused on eating those foods, the actual whole foods that are in that product that give you all the nutrients that are similar or close to milk. In the reality, it's really no competition for milk. It's not the same as cow milk, and that should not be its goal, because the goal is not to replace cow milk with another milk product. The goal is to eat other whole foods in place of a drink. So anyway, I'm getting a little bit hyper here. Let me slow myself down. I'm not intending to dismiss the potential positives and benefits of a plant-based milk. I just look at it from a different angle. I'm not trying to replace the nutrients and get it from a different substance. I'm using plant-based milks as a vehicle. So there's lots of recipes that contain milk or that require, quote, milk. Well, you could use almond or soy or hemp or rice milk or oat milk instead, if you were trying to cut back on your milk consumption, or if you're one of those anywhere from 35% to upwards of 80 to 90% of people, depending on your race, ethnicity, and location in the world, who is sensitive or intolerant of lactose. One of these might be a good option for you if you need a vehicle or a liquid that kind of has some of the same properties to allow you to cook similar items that are kind of milk-like, but not because you need to replace the nutrients. Now let's break down some of these alternatives. Almond milk is a great option if you want a milk or vehicle that's like milk for like your shakes or your coffee or whatever that is low in calories. So you're trying to watch your calories and carbohydrate intake. That's something I found very helpful when I was doing bodybuilding or when I'm in competition mode, because I can have a smoothie or a drink with my protein powder. If I'm having protein powder, that is lower in carbohydrates. Soy has the most closest, like, gram for gram amount of protein compared to cow's milk. So if you want a substitute, so to speak, I hate to use the word substitute. If you're looking for another beverage or something to use that will give you comparable protein, soy will be a good option. Hemp milk or hemp drink has a high amount of the healthy omega-3 fats. Rice milk is very helpful for individuals who have a lot of allergies. So someone who has nut allergies, tree allergies, soy allergies, that might be a great option. I'll try to create another link in the show notes to a table that's showing a comparison of all the different groups. But I'll just kind of list a few of them. So like the protein content of whole milk is 8 grams, 2% milk is 8 grams, soy is approximately 8 grams, almond milk 1 gram, coconut milk 0, and that's just for one cup. If you're looking at the calcium content, whole milk, 2% milk, 28% of your daily need of calcium in 1 cup. Soy milk gives you a whopping of 45%, approximately calcium in 1 cup. Almond milk also 45%. Coconut milk 10%. Of course, these are probably fortified. So that's just like a simple comparison. So like none of these are 1-to-1. So don't think about it as replacing one beverage for another beverage. Again, these are just beverages. There are other nutrients or other foods out there for you to choose from in order to get all the nutrients you need in your diet. All right, so if I'm not drinking milk, am I going to have healthy bones? Can I have healthy bones? The answer to that question is yes. So in general, there's a book called The China Study, and they looked at researchers did studies looking at the diets and the health outcomes of different populations in China. So there was one study where they looked at Chinese diet that was highly focused on fruits and vegetables as the main source of nutrients such as calcium. And the diets of these particular Chinese women, which was high in fruits and vegetables, had a significantly higher elevated or high intake of vitamins and other phytochemicals, and subsequently had higher bone mass and bone density. Okay. So just in general, compared to other populations that did not consume as many or as much fruits and vegetables. There's another study in 2007 was conducted by a group of French researchers that showed that high consumption of soybeans prevalent in many Asian dishes was associated, again, in association, not causation necessarily, with decreased risk of osteoporosis. Also, there was a study that looked at postmenopausal women and showed that they had reduced risk of fractures when they consumed soy-containing foods as a major part of their diet. And what kind of foods were these women consuming? They were consuming bok choy, cabbage, variety of other fruits and vegetables, similar to the ones that I listed earlier in this episode that were rich in calcium. Okay, so what do I want you to take away from this episode? What are the points here? Number 1, you do not need to consume dairy, nor do you need to consume a dairy alternative in order to have a healthy, well-balanced diet. You do need to eat a high quality, highly varied diet in order to achieve those benefits if you are not consuming dairy. That's number 1. Number 2, calcium, unfortunately, is one of the top 4 missing nutrients in the standard American diet. So most Americans are lacking in this, and it's right up there with vitamin D, potassium, and fiber. So 3 of those you can get from milk. But all of those you can get from plant-based foods, not just milk. So the challenge as a person, especially if you are a woman, young woman, middle-aged woman, postmenopausal, premenopausal woman, or a man over the age of 70, you really do need to work hard to get adequate calcium in your diet. Now, for some people, the easiest way to get that calcium is going to be from milk and some of those other ingredient things that we talked about, vitamin K, potassium, and vitamin D. But again, it's not the only way to get those things. You can get a lot of other health benefits and a lot of other ingredients, including the fiber, if you eat some of those plant options that I discussed earlier. All right. And finally, the fact that most Americans are lacking in calcium and some of these other nutrients does not equate with drink more milk, nor does it equate with drink more milk alternatives. Let me say that again. Not getting adequate calcium, vitamin D, vitamin K, potassium, fiber from your diet does not equate to drink more milk, nor does it equate to drink more milk alternatives. It equates to eating a well-balanced, varied diet, rich in plant-based foods and whole, organic, wholesome foods. If you're going to have milk, ideally, preferably, it should come from cattle that are raised without antibiotics, without growth hormones, because these are likely things that are contributing to the risk that we see associated with the consumption of cow's milk, specifically the increased risk of endometrial cancer and prostate cancer. Now, some of that comes from the endogenous hormones that are already present in the milk. But nonetheless, if you're going to have it, that's ideal. I know that not everyone can do that. And the challenge to all of this is making it work for everyone across all socioeconomic, the entire socioeconomic spectrum. Unfortunately, I cannot solve that problem today. I am just here to inform you. So if you are someone who is wondering if you should be consuming more milk, or if you're someone who's wondering if you should be consuming plant-based milk instead, I hope I answered your question. More importantly, I hope I did not thoroughly confuse you. I may have made some of you upset, but that's okay. I'm not trying to be everyone's friend. I'm just trying to make everyone else healthy. I hope that you found today's episode helpful. And if you like today's episode, you want to hear more, tune in. I release a podcast episode weekly as long as my schedule permits. I also coach women doctors and healthcare professionals who are interested in improving their overall health, well-being, and fitness, with special emphasis on lifestyle medicine and lifestyle coaching for the professional woman as it pertains to your unique needs. Finally, you can like, review, subscribe to my podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This has been another episode of The Lifestyle MD. Special thank you to Lou Musa for the show theme music, created with Free Photography and makeup by Janae for the cover photo. And if you enjoyed this podcast and you haven't already, please subscribe today and share with another woman doctor who may benefit. You may also follow me on Instagram at Angela Lifestyle MD. I am Dr. Angela. Thank you for joining me today.